going to read this welcome statement from Coventry Cathedral. This is not our welcome statement, it's the Coventry Cathedral one. And I was thinking, I usually think that people are pretty well spread out today, and we're a little lopsided. But, so why don't we do this? Why don't we have the women in the choir be group A, and the men in that side be group B, and this will be group C, okay? So let's read it. Your C.
We extend a special welcome to those who are single, married, divorced, widowed, straight, gay, confused, well-heeled, or down at heel. We especially welcome wailing babies and excited toddlers. We welcome you whether you can sing like Pavarotti or just growl quietly to yourself. You're welcome here if you're just browsing, just woken up, or just got out of prison.
We don't care if you're a Christian than the Archbishop of Canterbury, or haven't been to church since Christmas 10 years ago. We extend a special welcome to those who are over 60, but not grown up yet, and to teenagers who are growing up too fast.
We welcome Keep Fit moms, football dads, starving artists, tree huggers, latte sippers, vegetarians, junk food eaters. We welcome those who are in recovery or still addicted.
We welcome you if you're having problems, are down in the dumps, or don't like organized religion. We're not that keen on it either.
We offer welcome to those who think the earth is flat, work too hard, don't work, can't spell, or are here because family is visiting and want to come to the cathedral. We welcome those who are kings, peers, both, or neither.
We offer a special welcome to those who could use a prayer right now, have religion shoved down their throats as kids, or got lost on the ring road and wound up here by mistake. We welcome pilgrims, tourists, seekers, doubters, and you. And before we go on to our other scripture, our other reading, I'd like to just ask for a little input. In one word, how does this make you feel? Happy? Welcome. Included? Comfortable? Welcome? Inclusive? Understood? It's really beautiful, isn't it? Okay. Thank you.
This is the scripture reading for today. Matthew 17, 1 through 8. Jesus took with him Peter and James and his brother John, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became dazzling white. Suddenly there appeared to them Moses and Elijah, talking with him. Then Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will make 3 dwellings here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While he was still speaking, suddenly a bright cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud a voice said, "This is my Son, the Beloved. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell to the ground and were overcome by fear. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Get up and do not be afraid." And when they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus himself alone.
I love that welcome statement from Coventry Cathedral. I heard it on NPR about a month ago. I actually was in the car on my way to church. And when I got here, I said to Roberta, "Are you going to preach on that? Did you hear that?" And she said, said yes, she had heard it early in the morning. I said, are you going to preach on it? She said, no. And I said, well, then I am. Probably some of you heard it too. It was on NPR a number of times. And it was also all over the internet. So you probably saw it, many of you. It was a week when there was a lot of unwelcoming going around. It's about a month ago. And perhaps it was because of that my reaction was so intense. I almost had to stop the car. I was so excited. It was a feeling of affirmation and joy that just seemed to fill my soul. And then I caught myself thinking, that must have originally come from a UCC church. Immediately, I was really embarrassed. What an arrogant thought. Wrong, too. This beautiful statement apparently came originally from a little church in Wales who had asked that whenever it was used, people would thank God for the writer. Goodness, the glory was to go to God, not the UCC. Much more appropriate attitude. Now, I've read it a number of times this past month, and it still makes me feel very, very good. Pretty much all of the words that you used to describe how it made you feel. So a few days after I heard the statement, I shared it with a group of UCC colleagues. I facilitate a clergy group, and I shared it with them at our reflection time, and I asked for their responses. Well, they all liked it. How could they not? And they agreed that it felt good to hear such a generous spirit. But then one of them shared a concern that sometimes people in the UCC are so focused on welcome that they forget what they're welcoming people into. And that can be a problem. For of course, Jesus didn't just welcome people to join him so we, all of the disciples, could feel good and comfortable and included and welcome and whatever all those wonderful words were. He welcomed people to join him, and then he challenged them. So I'm not going to preach a whole sermon on extravagant welcome, though it certainly is a temptation. So, this is Transfiguration Sunday. And so that passage we read from Matthew's Gospel talks about things that don't necessarily make us comfortable. In fact, if we look at them pretty hard, they tend to make us uncomfortable. Things like visions, group visions. Like a few disciples seeing Jesus shining like the sun, and seeing people long dead, the most holy people from their tradition, Moses and Elijah. What are we supposed to do with this story? Well, we can get analytical. We're good at that. We can get analytical and we can try to rationalize it. That's perhaps the most comfortable way for most postmodern people, or even modern people for that matter, to look at visionary experiences, visionary scriptures. We can talk about all the symbolism in the story, and it is filled with symbolism. We might simply say that it is just a symbolic tale. Look at the mountain, for instance. The mountain. Mountains are all over spiritual experiences in the Bible and in life today, actually. It was on a mountain that God tested Abraham, providing a ram for a sacrifice in place of Isaac. It was on a mountain that God gave the 10 Commandments. It was on a mountain that God rained down fire to burn Elijah's sacrifice and defeat the 500 prophets of Baal. In the ancient tradition, the most significant spiritual experiences, pretty much all, tended to happen on high mountains. And even today, we speak of the most spiritual experiences as mountaintop experiences. I would guess if we were to ask everybody, and if everybody were really honest, pretty much all of us have had something we would call a mountaintop experience, though it might not have literally been on a mountain. But that symbolism is obvious. It's easy. And why did the disciples see Moses and Elijah with Jesus? Well, that's pretty obvious too. To them, if not to us. Because those two represented the whole of Jewish tradition. Moses represented the law, and Elijah represented the prophets. So when the story says that James and John and Peter saw Jesus in a most holy place with Moses and Elijah, they would have understood that that was seeing him in the context of their tradition. Not separate from their tradition, not going off on his own and doing something new and different, but as coming right out of the tradition, as part of the tradition. And how about that bright cloud out of which the voice spoke? Well, according to tradition, God had been embraced by a cloud repeatedly. When God led the Israelites out of Egypt, God appeared as a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. And when Moses went up on the mountain to receive the 10 Commandments, he encountered God in a cloud that descended over the mountain. When God was present in the tabernacle in the wilderness, the tabernacle was filled with a cloud. Those are all familiar symbols from the tradition. More familiar then than now, perhaps, but familiar. So if Matthew, or anyone else telling the story of Jesus, had wanted to invent a story showing Jesus as holy and continuing ancient religious tradition, these are exactly the symbols they might very well have chosen. Even the words that issued from the cloud in the story are familiar words. This is my son, the beloved. With him I am well pleased. Well, that's also how Matthew describes what happened at Jesus' baptism. A voice from heaven said, this is my son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased. They are exactly the same words, except that up on the mountain, the voice adds the directive, listen to him. And even that dazzling brightness, I'm always interested in dazzling brightness. The story says that Jesus was transfigured, that his face shone and his clothes were so bright white, and this is how I envision it, the words don't say this, but they was so bright you could hardly even look at him, he was dazzling. Well, the book of Exodus describes Moses coming down off the mountain carrying the 2 tablets of the 10 Commandments, and it says the skin of his face shone because he'd been talking to God. The oldest tradition said no man could look on the living God and live, but Moses had gotten very, very close, and it made him shine with the reflected glory of God. So very much in this story is told in familiar symbols and repetitive language. But what does that mean, that the story is told in familiar symbols and words we already know? Well, many people today would say that it means that the story is only symbolic, that it does not relate to any actual event at all. And some, not all, but some of those would dismiss the story as nothing more than a symbolic tale. Now, some of you know, many of you know, that I am far from a biblical literalist. I don't believe God wrote the Bible. I don't believe God dictated the Bible. I don't believe the power of the Bible rests on every word being literally factual. And I believe there can be great power and truth in a symbolic tale, even if it is only symbolic. But what if something like this mountaintop experience really did happen? What if a few disciples had an encounter they experienced as so holy it could only be described in the symbolic language of the most holy tradition? Oh, come on, a cynical modern person might say. His face shone like the sun. Well, it's not as far-fetched as it might seem. In much more recent times, saints and mystics have been reported to glow, literally glow, look brighter than real life, with a visible spiritual light. I've heard it said about Mother Teresa. Some people claim to see auras which are particularly radiant in people who are spiritually vibrant. Are they shining in some way because they have had some kind of holy encounter? I don't know, but it's something to think about. And the familiar halos around holy people in traditional religious art, all of those halos, all of those halos began as an attempt to depict exactly this kind of phenomenon. And I find that fascinating. I don't doubt that different people do have different levels of spiritual energy or different kinds of spiritual energy. I believe there is a lot that we can't see and hear and touch. And it makes sense to me that people who are more acute in their ability to see such things may actually see a difference in the brightness of people. And if that's true for modern-day spiritually heightened people, surely it might have been true for Jesus. And what about what the three disciples saw and heard? Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus and the voice out of the bright cloud. Could that story told with such traditional symbolism really have reflected a group vision, by means of which those disciples came to realize something really important? Something about God? Something about Jesus? Does the idea of a group vision make you uncomfortable? I'm not so sure. Today we tend to be so skeptical of such things. Encounters with anything that seem truly holy don't fit easily within the space-time box that we consider reality. We don't expect God to communicate by means of dreams and visions. If we have a dream, if we have our own dream that seems numinous or infused with the holy, the first thing we do is try to define it as something else. Has that happened to anybody else? It's happened to me. I don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. If we didn't define or rationalize them away, such experiences could easily terrify us, maybe make us overcome with fear, as the disciples were in the story. Personally, I've had an experience that seemed so holy it scared me silly. I haven't had many of those, but enough to have an idea of how it feels. So for a moment, I ask you to consider what it might mean to take this story as a symbolic story, yes, but based on an extraordinary experience. From a time when ordinary people more easily admitted the possibility of truly encountering the divine. If we enter into the story this way, as we look at Jesus glowing with spiritual light up on the mountain, we see the divine realm powerfully infusing Jesus' whole being. And then Peter's reactions seem like reactions we might have to a holy encounter. Peter was terrified. All of them were terrified. And Peter wanted to make a holy dwelling on the mountain, perhaps a place where Jesus, Moses, and Elijah could be worshipped. How very human. Centuries later, religious people did make a shrine up on that mountain to commemorate the holy encounter and preserve it for the future. I've been there. Several of you have been there. Up on Mount Tabor, the place with the crazy, crazy taxis that go too fast up winding roads and so on. Remember that play of St. Ernie? But Peter missed the point, and that shrine misses the point. The point came while Peter was still laying out his plan to build a shrine. The voice from the bright cloud interrupted him and corrected him, saying, "This is my son, the beloved, with him I am well pleased. Listen to him. Listen to him." That's the point. Listen to him as he invites his disciples then and now to follow him. Listen to him and commit ourselves to follow him in our time and in our place. Listen to him is the point, and that's true whether the story is based on a factual encounter by 3 disciples or whether it is a wholly symbolic story created to express what Jesus' disciples, and Matthew in particular, believed that Jesus was about. The point is to listen to him. And what is it that Jesus was saying that his disciples in all times and places should listen to? Well, it starts with welcome. See, there was a reason for that back there. It does. It starts with welcome. Welcome, extravagant welcome. For children and poor people and sick people and people who need help and imperfect people and sinners. I passionately believe that we are called to continue Jesus' invitation and welcome, especially to people who are often made to feel unwelcome. That's why I like that welcome statement so much. But make no mistake, Jesus' invitation was not to come in and get comfortable. Yes, he healed people in all sorts of ways, beginning with recognizing them and affirming them and welcoming them. And surely that brought them a measure of comfort. But then he expected them to follow him and do all those things that he had been doing. Now, I'm not going to pretend to name all those things this morning. Don't worry, I won't even try. But I will just begin a list of some of the basics of how Jesus was and how he calls us to be. And you're not going to find any of these things in a particular passage that you can pull out and say, see here, this is what Jesus tells us to do. This is between the lines. This is the whole sense that I have of what Jesus was about. Not the whole, because I can't do it all, but I'm going to start it. And you could finish the list. No, you could continue the list if you wanted to. Jesus emphasized compassion, not arbitrary rules, and certainly not hard-heartedness. He centered his life on understanding of the will of God, and his understanding rested heavily on a life of prayer. He expected to receive guidance through prayer, and he did, and he followed that guidance. He sought to do what was right rather than what was popular. He displayed extraordinary courage in standing up to those who were hurting others in just about any way you can think of. He gave of his own life, day after day after day, and finally he gave his life to improve the lives of others. And through it all, everything that Jesus did, he did for the glory of God, not for the glory of himself. Jesus lived these principles and calls us to do the same. The specifics of our time and place are very, very different from the specifics of his time and place. The details are different, but the principles haven't changed at all. So as we try to be faithful in navigating the difficult times that we live in, we would do well to focus on the principles, praying for God to help us discern how they might apply to our specific situations, That is how we can listen. And that is the best way I can think of to follow. Amen. And now we have our opportunity to share of our substance to support the church in its efforts to continue Christ's work in the world. Will the ushers please come forward for the morning offering?